so many contractors, I think today, especially young guys, they are more concerned about their systems than selling jobs. All right. So what are we gonna start with today?
I don't know. What are we gonna talk about?
Well, the build. Let's talk about your building. Let's start with your building.
Okay.
The shop, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's start with what was your first shop?
My first shop, a storage unit, and my first shop way back.
Yeah.
Was the 4 by 6 foot porch of my 1-bedroom apartment on the second story.
Wow.
And a Honda Civic trunk.
No kidding.
Hustling.
Holy crap.
I would go and do landscape cleanups and just whatever, hand digging in drain lines.
Like bagging stuff up.
Yeah. And then I got a little Ford Ranger and just freaking loaded that thing down with whatever I could do, whatever jobs I could pick up from people.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And
then I would hire all the guys that I was working with at my job to come work with me on the weekends.
Yep.
And just saved up and then bought an enclosed trailer and bought a pickup truck and
just slowly
just hustled until it was time to quit and do my own thing.
Right. Yeah. So, and how many years ago was that? Would have been college, right? So
no, that was 14.
Okay.
13, 14, something like that.
Yeah. So about 10 years.
Started this business in 2016.
Okay.
So they were going into our 8th season now.
As what J Squared Outdoor is.
So, all that stuff. Then, when I actually started, I had a storage unit. And then I rented, a little space in this guy's 3-sided barn for maybe 6 or 8 months. And then the place that I'm in now came up for rent. And I was able to snag that. I've been there for 7 years.
Okay.
So it's just a little hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Barn.
But that's all you need.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that goes with the whole thing of everybody, I'm sure everybody that has seen you social media wise or seen you, the business and the type of jobs you install would think there's this massive, this massive shop or this area that has enabled you to get there. But in reality, not having that has enabled you to get the efficiency, the equipment, the stuff like that. Because the stuff, the fancy bathrooms and the nice office doesn't necessarily sell you jobs.
No. Everything is completely bare bones. Only things I'm buying are things that make me money.
Yep.
And that's been my mindset from the beginning. Because start from nothing. I literally had, when I started my business, the day I started, I had $3,000 in my bank account.
Yeah.
I had nothing. And I just hustled. It was crazy, but it's been good. No looking back.
Yeah.
But so you see all this stuff. You see all the excavators, the trucks, and the whatever, the shop going up, paying cash for it, doing all this stuff. But what it took to get there started even before the Honda Civic, because I had probably, I had 4 years for a bachelor's degree in horticulture science and landscape design. And then I had a business before that, just mowing grass and learning how to do mulching and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's taken, you're seeing the culmination of almost 20 years now. Right.
So, yeah. And it's that's the part that everyone can say oh yeah, I get it. And it's no, you really can't, you know, because you've just told us about the work and the stuff you've done, but not the sacrifices, the stuff that comes along with that. And I think that's one huge thing in today's world with the guru culture, I guess you would call it, is not everything is what it seems. Right. Flat out bottom line. Mm-hmm. And, it was a similar story with me. My first business purchase, I had to get a $2,500 loan for. Right. Now, at the time, I had just spent my savings on purchasing my first house. I didn't go to college. I didn't have a college debt. I didn't have anything like that. So but very similar in like you work with what you got.
Yeah.
Like, and you make it work. You know, I remember using a buddy's Bobcat to do a mulch job. It broke down. We had like 10 yards left over on this job. We shoveled it into the back of a dump truck. Like, jeez, it was like a dump truck I was borrowing, a Bobcat I was borrowing. The Bobcat hydraulics went down. Couldn't use it. Scoop shovels into the bed of a dump truck. But it's like nowadays, guys are like, oh, well, Bobcat's broke. We can't do it.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah, the amount of back pain and shoveling and wheelbarrowing that I did it would blow your mind. Now, you see all this stuff now, like, yeah, but I can't do that stuff. And my back's broke after years of this shit.
Right. Versalock. Like, I mean, even samples. I take samples out to a client. I'm like,
you got to warm up a little bit before we handle these things.
Like, you almost want to take the trailer with the vac lift to take it to them. Like, but no, it's that's cool. I didn't know that about you. I did not know that's how.
Yeah, just
how it all
basically
started.
Bootstrap from nothing.
Yeah,
and then just slowly, just one step at a time, and all that. How'd you get started?
So when I grew up. I was blessed, and I'm learning that more and more nowadays. I was blessed to grow up with a father that was a builder. So I learned a lot about construction and the industry and stuff like that just off of watching him. Now, 2008 was a crusher to him. He was a builder in 2008 when it went down. But the financial lessons it taught me from his failures to this day helped me where I'm at. But I bought my first house when I was 20. Needed a lawnmower. It's 2 acres, so I went and got that $2,500 loan, and I think I paid cash for an $1,100 trailer. I already had a truck because I was pumping oil wells. That was my full-time job, was just maintaining local oil wells.
What do you mean oil wells?
So we around here it's called a pumper. So the pump jacks you see going down the road, a guy goes to those typically, once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, and just greases everything, checks the tanks, sees how much oil's in them or water.
You're talking about people pumping oil out of their backyards? And
just like oil well, just anywhere, like farm fields, everything you pass.
That doesn't exist where we're at.
Oh yeah,
I never heard of that.
Huh? I'll be damned. Yeah, around us, we've got. Heck, if you drive out, some of the best wells in the Midwest are just down the road there.
Really?
They would make 100 barrel oil a day, in their prime, and you got to be calling in the oil, so all that. But that's a 24-hour job, because if something goes wrong, somebody runs out of house gas. So while I was doing that is when I started mowing and landscaping. I essentially in my early 20s didn't take a day off.
Yeah,
probably similar to what you did.
Oh yeah, you're grinding that between 18 years old until literally just in the last few years, dude.
Yes,
it's been just nonstop.
Yeah, and that's what
hustle.
So when I bought the mower, my wife at the time now, but girlfriend at that time, she was probably a blessing, because she kind of was just like, I trust you, just keep rolling with it. And, I'm gone every weekend, I'm gone every evening, like I'm constantly just doing more and more and more. And then that, similar to you, I was lucky that my house had a 24 by 36 garage when I bought it, so a detached, so I could kind of operate out of that. But you in a quick few years, you've got 2 and 3 trailers, you've got 2 trucks, you've got all that. So then, that eases into, and realistically, the way I got to where I am now is mowing for people who wanted landscape jobs done.
Okay.
And it's like, I got a buddy that, he does landscape designs, I can plant. And so went and learned that and started doing landscape installs. Well, then, you're doing a landscape install for a front yard, and they've got an old paver patio in the backyard. And they're like, we've always wanted to have it done, but nobody will come look at it. And it's like, well, I can do that. And, fortunately for me, I reached out to some local suppliers, and they sent a guy out that he's like, let's go, like I'll provide you the material list. I'll help you out on the first one. And then from there, it was like, this is what more of what I should be doing. And I think probably within 6 months of doing my first hardscape job, and again, I'm not recommending anybody necessarily do it my way, but I think I'm similar to you. Like, if I'm going to do it, like, I'm going to do it.
Go big or go home, baby.
Yeah. And so within 6 months, probably my first patio, I dropped every single landscape and mowing job I had, and was like, we're going to build decks. We're going to install patios. And mind you, up until, I don't know, Cole, when did I hire you?
It would have been 2020. It would have been COVID.
Yeah.
Right before COVID.
So Cole was probably my first true full-time employee. Okay. So, I mean, when I'm talking like burning the candle at both ends, like I did that for, what would that have been, 2020? I'd have been 30, so 8 years.
You were working by yourself?
For the most part. Or still doing like the buddy, on the weekend route, or, hiring guys who probably weren't the best of people, but they were another body.
Right.
And so, it would have probably been 2019. I think I had one guy before him that was full-time. But, you just did it. And everybody always asks me like, well, yeah, but what was that transition piece? And it's like, if I had a guy call off that was supposed to help me, I still went and did the job.
Yeah.
Nowadays I feel like guys are like, well, crap, the excavator's broke. We can't dig that trench.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's been a hustle. And like you said, probably up until last year, I could finally be like, yeah, let's go to my kid's game instead of work.
Right.
You make the sacrifices when, and I just did a podcast where I talked about, it's not going to be the popular opinion, but your kid ain't going to remember you missing their t-ball game.
Mm-hmm.
When your kid's 10, they're going to remember you missing their gymnastics meet.
Yeah.
So you can choose to make that sacrifice. If you want to be a truly successful business owner, in my opinion, you can choose to make that sacrifice when they're young and they won't remember. Or you can milk it out and have to make that sacrifice when they remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
ideally neither, but
right.
If you got to pick one, you've got, while they're young, they're not going to remember and then, you can make a lot of headway.
Yeah. And so I was fortunate that, I worked 3 jobs at one point. I ended up picking up a night shift job to kind of offset things.
Yeah.
When I had kids when I was pretty young with my wife. And, so, but I think that's the bottom line is, and I think it's overrated today, but hustle.
Yeah. There's a lot of what, we're talking about a lot of times, like that Hardscape Mastery and stuff was talking about not working on Saturdays and how you set up your business in order to be able to do that. But you have to rewind and say in the first 5-6 years, and hopefully by paying attention to what we're doing and listening to podcasts and all that stuff, you're going to be able to catapult a little bit faster.
Yeah.
But there's no substitute for those first several years of just grinding it out.
And obviously and
you can't go hire administrator and an accountant and all these people to do everything for you when you're only making $500,000 or $750,000. You need to get up over $1 million in order to be able to do these things and then keep on going. But people think, well, I'm just going to hire guys off the bat.
Yep.
I'm going to mail it in and let everybody else do. Yeah, you're going to learn real quick how that works out.
Yeah.
But it's not in this business. You've got to be Johnny on the spot.
Yeah.
With everything you're doing.
Yeah, and that's that's an extremely good point. Is that so many contractors I think today, especially young guys, they are more concerned about their systems than selling jobs.
Yeah,
here's the thing: if you're spending, and I think we all probably did it at one point or another to a little bit of an extreme, but if you're spending 2 days designing your company logo,
right,
but you're not making $100,000 a year yet,
you're just dicking around, buddy. Let's go make some money.
If you're shopping for trucks and you're shopping for equipment, if you're looking at the screen time on your phone and it's 7 hours a day, 5 hours a day, and you pull that up and it's not making cold calls, which by the way was when I started out with landscaping. I would sit down with a yellow memo pad with people written down within 25 miles of me and just cold call commercial companies, stuff like that. And that sucks. I don't know. I don't know if you've ever done cold calling, but mentally you got to be in that right spot.
Yeah.
But I feel like kids nowadays, if it's not being handed to them,
right,
they don't go for it.
Yeah. And it's so easy now to market. They got Thumbtack and Facebook and Instagram and all these things that you can market with. They don't know what that was like to have to really hustle. And my business has benefited from the social media, obviously. But I remember doing that kind of stuff and really having to network and cut it down hard. But like, if you don't have sales, you don't got nothing.
No,
like that's the one thing that you've got to learn how to do right off the bat is how to sell.
Yes,
and
separate yourself.
And as soon as you learn how to sell and you get a system and a process, and you can just know when you're meeting with the client that you're going to get that job and you're getting it at the right prices, then the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, though, if you're hiring an admin before you've developed a process for your company,
right?
That's one of the biggest recipes for failure, right? Is like you don't have a system, so how do you expect her to operate or him to operate or anybody to step in and operate it? So, yeah.
Unless that person's capable of setting it up for you, but it's rare. But somebody's going to come and work for you for $18 an hour and be able to set you up. Like you got to be the one that sets them up.
And I think that's the big thing, like we've talked about before, is we're past the days of getting $100,000 office admin for $50,000 because it's more comfortable for her. Because the companies that can pay her $100,000, they're going to be like, yeah, man, it's cool if you work remote. Yeah, it's cool if you bring your kid to school or kid to work with you. Like, people are so valuable now if you have the skill set for these bigger companies that when you're a small company, you're not really on the radar for some of these.
Yeah, and then once you try to give them 401k or IRAs and health insurance and then workers comp, like all that kind of stuff, it adds up real quick.
Yeah, then you start looking at that sales goal going, holy shit, this is more money than I have to make double what I've ever made.
Right.
And then you've put yourself in a real bad position.
And you see a lot of these guys that are hitting like that $1 million, $1.2 million mark, and they're like, man, I should be crushing it. And then they're like, well, I'm only making 3 or 4% net profit. And well, you look at their overhead, and they've got all these expenses that a big business has, but they're not making enough money to support that.
Right.
And that's, when you start off broke and you don't take much debt or any debt and you just grow slow, you avoid those costly mistakes. Whereas a lot of people they're starting off, maybe they've got some money or whatever, but they go into a bunch of debt, they buy a bunch of equipment, they hire a bunch of people, and next thing you know, they're upside down in that equation on their P&L.
They're playing the lottery with their business.
Yeah. I mean, they don't know they are until it's too late usually, or until it's time to, hopefully it's not too late, but they're still, playing a big game of cleanup.
Right. And that's what, I think, and obviously we run on I would say 80% cash basis now with all of our purchases and everything, which hasn't always been the case. But, once you do that, the comfort that comes with it, from a standpoint of, number one, you start thinking about your purchases more.
Yeah.
Like way more.
Oh, yeah.
Like how can I justify this? For instance, you can buy, a heavy duty pickup nowadays is what, $85,000, $90,000.
Right.
Like that's a hard pill to swallow when you're writing a check.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Very.
I get to that. I pay cash for everything. My business is completely debt free. Even the building we're building is completely debt free. And so when every 2 months, maybe 3 months, we're repairing trucks and they're pissing me off. And I'm like, man, I need to just go buy a brand new freaking truck. And then I go and I get to it and I'm looking on the dealer's website and I'm like, I can't do that. I cannot. I will vomit if I write that check right now.
Yeah. And that's what, I just had this discussion with Cole earlier because it's like, we need another fleet truck from just a transportation standpoint, not necessarily from a working standpoint.
Right.
And I said, the best bet's probably going to, at this point, it's probably going to be for me to replace my truck and turn my truck into a fleet truck. But that's the worst thing in my head because I don't want a new truck. Like now that I'm paying cash for everything, I don't want it. I don't want to have to spend the money. Like I want to get to the point where I want to spend that money on myself. And it's like, it doesn't do anything for me in reality. So, you know, and like Cole was laughing because he said, but that's a good problem. Like you get to buy yourself a new truck. I'm like, but it's not, because you look at that money as, okay, well, that could be this, or it could be this, or it could be this. And quite frankly, you know, again, unpopular opinion, I know everybody's Ford, Chevy, GM, you know, Dodge, whatever. They all suck.
Yeah,
they all break.
They all break.
And they're
brand new or not, and they're all going to break.
And they're all expensive.
Yep.
And so the same thing with equipment. I mean, I think we could all go. I mean, I run primarily Kobelco and Bobcat. You run a lot of Kubota and Takeuchi.
I run whatever's available.
Right. But I think the common denominator is you get great support from Columbus Equipment.
Right.
You know, I get great support from Southeastern.
Yeah.
You know, that's the common denominator that I think everyone overlooks.
Yeah.
When it comes to those purchases.
Yeah. And I'm now on the flip side of the trucks, because that's the thing I was talking about. Like, I only spend money on stuff that makes me money.
Yeah.
And trucks don't make me money.
No.
They sit out in front of the house and they haul stuff and they haul people back and forth. They really don't make me money. What makes me money is excavators, skid steers, N-Cons, buggies, all that kind of stuff. And I got no problem writing checks for that stuff. That stuff I'll spend ridiculous money, buy brand new, because that's where we make our money.
Billable hours.
Yeah.
I mean that's...
and it decreases the labor. You got to look at it like, where is my money? Like, where can I spend the most amount of money and get the most return?
Right. And
that's all I think about. That's why I got all these old trucks. Yep. And people make fun of me all the time. They're like, dude, they're so old, and why don't you get new trucks? And it looks like crap. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm making just as much money as you are with your brand new truck, but I got all nice equipment in the backyard, and that's what's really turning money.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, for instance, you know, last week, we purchased, you know, a used triaxle dump truck. I could have just as easily bought myself a Platinum F350.
Right.
But, you know, it's the same price. It's the same exact price. And, you know, but when you get into that mindset of, like, I'm doing this to make money. I'm not doing this to look good going down the road.
Exactly.
Like, obviously it's nice when you have Alcoas on the trucks and you have all this stuff. But for the same instance that our trucks aren't wrapped, is our business is mainly generated off of word of mouth.
Right.
Very rarely are you going to get anything but a complaint from a wrapped truck.
Right.
Like, you know, your guy cut somebody off, or he didn't use his blinker, or whatever. And so how can I justify $15,000 to wrap all of my trucks and equipment?
Right.
You know, that's a used buggy. That's a nice tag trailer. Like, there's so many things that I think, you know, we're on the same page as far as that goes. You know, when it comes to
like,
that.
what's your return? What's your ROI on the wrap?
Right.
You know, when I letter my trucks and everything, I'm like, honestly, I don't spend very much money. It's like very simple, but it's enough to get the point across. But I don't want to spend a lot of money on that stuff.
No.
I want to spend my money where it counts.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what so many guys don't understand. You know, if you take $15,000 in wraps, and let's say that wrap or that truck, you're going to keep it for 3 years before you turn it over. If you take $5,000 a year and put it into true marketing, like true social media, Google, I can 100% promise you will get way more return.
Yeah.
Like, if you do good work, obviously. But, you know, and it's that thing you get caught up in. You see these big companies wrapping everything, looking so good. And then you see, not to bash you, but like you just said, you see Jeremy's trucks and you see a huge company down your way and you go, oh, but then you look at the work provided and you go, wait a minute.
Yeah. And you look at, I mean, frankly, people aren't paying attention to billboards and trucks like they used to. They got their heads in their phones.
Yep.
So you got to have a social media presence.
Yep.
That's more important, and that's free, essentially. Just invest in some sweat equity.
Yeah.
But you know, it's definitely a better payoff, I would say. And I think, like, the wraps and doing these pretty trucks and everything, and it's cool. And I'm not saying I won't ever do that, but right now, where I'm at financially, I'm sinking money into different things, and eventually, you know, there will be excess money to put into that, but it's not a priority.
Right.
And it's cool. And then you see other people doing this stuff and you think that you have to do it. And that's what it's like, you got to think for yourself, because you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. You can do it your way, and you can just think of where you get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Where your money's best spent. Not, well, those guys, man, they have shiny trucks and this and that, and a beautiful office, and a full-time admin, and all these people, and job managers running around and pick up trucks.
Yep.
You don't have to do that. You can do it however you want.
Yeah, and we're in a world now where obviously you were younger. I mean, we were both younger when 2008, when the true crash happened, right? But we have been on a incline above that since that happened. And so there are so many business owners who have never even been a part of a true recession, a true setback. Whereas myself, I remember graduating high school and going through the phone book, calling builders and companies. We're not hiring. We're not hiring.
Yeah.
We're not hiring. These kids have never experienced that, ever. I mean, they wouldn't know what it's like. And when I say kids, I'm not bashing on them, but a lot of guys, if you've started your business in the last 5 to 7 years, in your 20s, like, chances are you've never really experienced a decrease in sales from year to year, unless it was brought on by yourself, unless you did bad work or you didn't honor contracts or something like that. So it's like you said, it is very easy to get caught up in, well, he's the same age as me and he just bought 3 brand new F550s.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, well, he's never going to own anything.
Yeah.
He's never going to have that night where he can just lay his head down and be like, no bills, no nothing.
Yeah.
Ain't got to worry about it.
Maybe he is, but it's usually not the case.
And like me, I was 0% funded by family or anyone else. I think you were kind of the same way. Like, quite frankly, my dad, after going through the 2008 thing, was like, what are you thinking?
Right.
Like, going into business for yourself. And so, when you don't have anybody else's money backing you, you think much differently.
Yeah. You got to save your money and have that stashed, retained earnings fund, emergency fund, ready to roll when it's time.
Yeah. I mean, we were just talking about it. That triaxle dump truck, I just ran the numbers, around $14,000 to put a new set of tires on that whole truck.
Yeah, buddy.
$14,000. So
that's big boy stuff.
Yeah. And with big boy equipment, I mean, you've got, 18,000 pound excavators. You've got that stuff. The repair bills are high.
Yeah, and depreciate. That's the good thing about like Synced Up when you go to set up on there,
right,
that you're recovering that depreciation cost, because a lot of people, you don't see it on your P&L.
Yeah.
So people don't realize that expense exists.
Yep.
And I mean, for us, I think it's over $200,000 of just depreciation and equipment cost every year that we need to recover in order to be able to replace all this stuff.
Yeah, because that's the big kicker, right? Is it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
And that goes all the way down the rabbit hole of how many hours am I going to put on a machine a year? How many, what's the cost benefit of keeping it longer than 2,000 hours?
Right.
Like the cost of keeping it versus turning it over.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you're locked into financing on a machine, they're telling you when you can get rid of that machine, because until it's paid off, or until you overcome that original deficit because you delayed, maybe you bought a $100,000 excavator and you went out and you made a lot of money with it this year, but you went out and bought another one with the money you made with it, instead of going, oh, I'm just going to pay this one down first.
Right.
Which, I'm not an anti-finance guy.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm a common sense guy. If you buy an excavator and you put yourself on a payment schedule, don't pay the payment. Don't pay only the payment. Like, get ahead of everything that you have to do that with, in my opinion. If you can get away with not doing it and renting when you need it, that's even better.
Sure.
Run a software like Synced Up, factor your numbers of renting that equipment into your quote, and it's no different than owning it. In the real scheme of things. Let's face it, most of the stuff that I own is more convenience than it is necessity. I mean, I would flat out say that. Now, does it make us more efficient? Yeah. But could I install a pool without an end-con? Yeah, it's not a necessity. Now, I mean, you ask the guys, like,
yeah, once you have it,
that would probably be the last machine we ever got rid of.
right?
But yeah, I mean, it's I think the financial talk. I think we could probably do a whole episode on that. Maybe even try and get Andy in on that. But I think as I've gotten older, as I've spent more time talking to you, talking to Andy, it has opened up my eyes to like the true goal.
Right. And you've got to be like more conservative than you think you've got to be in this business.
Yeah.
Like a lot more conservative. And you've got to save a lot of money in order to, because like the highs and the lows are like, I mean, we're talking a lot of money going in and out, especially with the pools.
Yeah.
And the high cost of all the equipment and the pools themselves and the shells. You've got to be really stable financially in order to do this stuff.
And that, I've always been a fan of kind of like I have my own mentally bank account wise day-to-day spending account for the company. I've always kind of had my each year, you have that number that like it's like when we get below that.
Right. Your threshold of like what I call, like what's my real zero or like what's my mental zero.
And every year that number gets higher.
Yeah.
Because it's like you just have more physical expenses as you grow, and you have dump trucks that break, you have excavators that break, you have tracks that need replaced, you have all that. And you start playing the game, and just like you, I mean, when something breaks, it's thousands. Like we're kind of out of the realm of $100 to fix this or to maintenance this whole machine. A whole maintenance rundown on the 140 is probably $1,500, and so like everything gets up into that thousands number. But I think it's great to always have that zero. That's not truly zero. I mean, you have to immediately, when you start a company, once I cross this threshold, I'm not going back below it.
Right.
Like unless it's an emergency, I cannot go below this.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things I just kind of taught myself because it was like sleepless nights, when it's like, and there may be customers that, their payment's coming Friday. And you call them, oh, well, we're in Florida for 10 days.
Right.
Like
so you've got to be able to have a retained earnings or a savings account to be able to even out those highs and lows.
Yeah. And that's huge. And I think that's one thing that's so awesome about what you and Andy are doing with the masterclass and Caleb is it sounds like, I mean, obviously I haven't been to it. I can't afford it, but yeah, I wondered if you picked up on that. No, what you guys are doing is great, and it's well worth the money. It sounds like you guys are focusing on a financial.
Oh yeah,
aspect
like
of it.
Andy does a whole I think it's like 4 hours with him and Stephanie, who's his CFO, and it's actually Stephanie's helping us out now. She's branched off and is helping other contractors. She's awesome, and they give a whole rundown of like basically how Andy started, how he progressed throughout the years, including like how he did the big jobs and how the money flowed through those whole jobs.
That's cool.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff I knew because Andy had shared it with me in the past.
Right.
And he's been super like the stuff that he shared with me in the past is how I've learned a lot of this stuff.
Right.
I didn't start out knowing it. So that stuff has like literally changed my life. And so for him to be able to bring that to the table and give that to people, you just see like you look around the room, these guys, their light bulbs are going off like, holy crap, this is how you do it.
Yeah, it's putting the whole puzzle together.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's really cool to see that.
And a guy like Andy, I mean, Andy, just like you, I mean, you walk the walk. Like you guys aren't just blowing smoke.
Yeah, he's the real deal. Like it's everything that he puts out there, he's really doing that stuff. And
yeah, and to operate
super cool.
The size of jobs he does, the way he does it.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And what the detail that they go through on the back end, like when that client pays and how they pay and what the benchmarks are and how well they had thought all that through from the beginning was super, super cool and interesting to see.
Yeah. And it puts you, and, I'm sure Andy learned a lot of lessons on that job. Yeah. Even with the systems he had.
Right.
On it. But, I mean, you guys, and that's one thing, right, that we never even, this wasn't even a world available to us when we started our companies.
Right.
Like you have, and I know guys will give him crap, or there's certain people who think differently about, paying a subscription to hear little secrets from guys like you or guys like Andy for, the social media subscription model and stuff like that. But the thousands upon thousands of dollars that will save you,
big time.
It's astronomical. We were so blessed. The company that when we got into pools, I've told everybody, people have asked me what number would I put on what they showed me in 3 days, and it's like there's still stuff to this day that they showed me in 3 days that I run into, or they told me about, right? And I don't know what number. I mean, tens of thousands. Like,
stuff that you would have never figured out.
Yeah.
Or it might have taken you a decade.
Yeah.
That's,
I always say 3 days saved me 3 years.
Oh yeah.
Like with that company.
For sure.
But we never had access. I would have never known those guys, if it wasn't for the pool conference I went to, if it wasn't for researching all this stuff. Same thing with you. When guys are reaching out to you, quite frankly, like a lot of that information shouldn't be free. It costs you money to figure stuff out.
Right.
It costs Andy money to figure stuff out.
And there's only so much time that I have available to help people.
You have a family.
Yeah, I'm super busy. But the value of like being able to ask somebody, like, and to have social media like we do these days.
Yeah.
And the like, it's incredible. And you see some of these young guys that come out and they actually pay attention and they listen to the right people, and they're just like, it's like a hockey stick curve. Like, you can really shave time, and I got on Instagram like 2014, and I started following. At first it was all these guys up in Canada that were just posting all these cool like unilock driveways and stuff like that they were doing, and I was just like soaking it in. And then I'm using like they're kind of the same inlays that they're doing in their designs, and some of like just stealing every little bit. And you see a guy doing something a certain way, like the way he's excavating, or the way like, oh, wow, that was interesting how he installed that tree or whatever. And you're just, if you got to be a sponge.
Yeah.
And that's how I am. And you see, it's fun to see other people kind of do that same thing. And they go from like really basic jobs, all of a sudden they're doing crazy good jobs, and they're actually doing a nice job at it. That's available now. And anybody can just, you can buy a ticket to a mastery class or whatever.
Yeah.
Or get in somebody's group or what, and you can shave years and years off of your career.
And I would say, when it comes to if there's guys out there that are like, but who do I want to do that with?
Right.
Research it. Legitimately look at the jobs they've completed. Look at their lives when they do conversations, when they're actually on a job site. Look at a job site during construction. If during construction it is a disaster zone, that guy probably doesn't have the best policies in place when it comes to doing the job.
And you can tell if you're paying attention, like which guys are aloof and just showing up in their fur coats and don't even know what the machine's called. And then there's guys that are, maybe they rub you the wrong way or whatever, but they're actually doing really, really nice work.
Yeah.
And so pay attention, because there's some of these guys there's all these people talking about hating on the gurus and stuff. But there's a lot of guys that are actually legit, and you can save a lot of time if you follow them. And but there's some guys that are turds. Oh yeah, obviously.
Yeah, we've been down that path.
But I mean, I'm not gonna say who.
No. But we all know. And I'll be honest, don't get butthurt if you send a guy like Andy or you a message, and you guys don't get back to him. That's.
I try, but man, there's so many sometimes, and you can't. My wife will divorce me if I sit there and sit on my phone all night when I come home from work.
It's not worth it. And like Andy, I'll be the first to tell you, if you run up to me on a job or at a supply store, or when I'm in the midst of something, you're probably going to think I'm a complete dick.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
I am not that way. Like, I'm more than willing to help you or give you a pointer about something, but my brain's going 100 miles an hour in that zone, and not every job is going right.
Yeah.
So when you reach out, Andy, I would guarantee, I mean, I think the job that they're on right now, he didn't post many stories, and he kind of was like, it's been a lot going on, and it's like, we all have that.
Yeah.
Like, we're still there doing it.
Right. There's times when shit's just hitting the fan left and right.
Oh, yeah.
and you don't really feel like doing it. But that's so it's just the way it is.
Yeah, but I would say we've never been in a time in society when, to be honest with you, there's no excuse for you to not do jobs the right way or to learn how to do jobs the right way.
Yeah.
Again, do your research, check with, follow up with guys.
And so here's the thing too, like when you ask guys questions, like we might only have time to respond with a little tidbit, a one line, do this, that. Then you go and research that on your own and figure out what we're talking about. Because some of these guys want shit spoon fed to.
Yeah.
I'm I don't have time to sit here and spoon feed it to you. I'm telling you what you need to know. If you can just Google, type into the Google what I'm telling you, you'll figure it out.
Or, what I did, I reached out to a company that, before I got into all the things I'm in right now. And I said, can I come shadow you? What would you charge me to come shadow you on the job?
Right.
And they're like, dude, we won't charge anything. Now, me, I won't let you. I'm not going to do it for free.
But and then you show up to work and help.
Yeah.
And we've had guys do that too. They've reached out to us and literally come to the job site and help us for a few days.
Yeah.
And I'll get all we just treat them like a subcontractor.
Right.
Pay them usually.
Yep.
Get all their insurance and W-9 and all that stuff.
But even if a guy reached out to you and said, listen, I couldn't make it to the master classes. I'm interested in some of it. What would you charge me just when your office is done and everything's done, just to come in for 4 hours and go over the financial side of things? Or there's going to come a point where if you say something like that, the guy might say, I really don't have time in my schedule to allow for that. But here's what I can do. If here's an avenue for you. If you're that interested, a lot of guys like us are going to be more apt to reply versus you saying, hey, how much base do you use under your patios? Hey, what do you seal your patios with? We're not there's not a lot of benefit out of that, in my opinion, for either party, because every application is different. Every person's in a different location, Right. So there's so much to it. But I think that in today's world, you should be able to research and learn and understand anything to a pretty high level.
Dude, we were in my day, we were scanning lawn site and literally just picking up any little thing we could, learning from everybody to try to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, and if you're a guy that's going to go to college, right, and you eventually want to start a company similar to what me and you have, my personal opinion, I didn't go to college. Go for business accounting and something like you did,
horticulture, or something like that.
Yeah, go with that, because I think business accounting would have been one of the things that I would have used nearly every day in my business, and just had more of an understanding. Now, would I still do my own accounting? No. I would hire an accountant to do it, but you understand the systems way faster than what it's taken us.
I took some classes at a local community college just to get some credits out of the way. Maybe it was during the summer. I can't remember when I did it. But they had entrepreneurship. Yeah. And so I took those, and a lot of that stuff, just learning okay, what is an LLC versus an S corp, and what is a P&L, and what is a balance sheet. That stuff kind of helps you. And still none of it really stuck, but I kind of understood when I got into this, what stuff was, so I wasn't super afraid of it. Yeah. And that's the other thing is when you get into this stuff, you realize quickly how much you don't know and how much there is to know about,
and it never ends.
Everything in the business world.
It seems like it never ends.
Yeah, it doesn't, and that's kind of the fun part of it.
Yeah,
you're learning every day.
You brought up lawn site. I actually remember when I started my company, I got on there and I was reading, because you get guys that get on there and they're like, hey, how much do you charge to mow an acre? And, you always got the guys to get on there, and they're like, you should know that. Like,
$10,000 is what we charge per acre.
Yeah. And there was one guy who got on there, and he said, every expense in your company, you need to figure it down to an hourly price for recovery. And so that was like my first like tidbit into it, all the way down to insurance costs me 7 cents an hour if I work this many hours. And you figure out your hourly rate. Yeah. Right. So I did that. And then I was like, holy crap. Like,
there it is.
That kind of worked. And so it's kind of the same thing. Now, obviously, now we have synced up. And
you got all these like softwares. You can literally just like message them.
Yeah.
And they'll probably do your whole budget for you.
Right.
Just as a sales presentation.
Yeah. And that was, and not to do a synced up pitch necessarily, but that was my huge thing with them was, I can't believe I forgot his name. If he listens to this, he's going to yell at me for it. Who's Fred? Fred. You know, when Fred did my budget, when we were doing the onboarding process, I was like, holy smokes. Like, this is amazing. Right. You know, and from there, it's just add and take away as you sell or acquire things or whatever, as things increase. But yeah, I mean, that was my first tidbit into it was, the basis of we do this to make money. Yeah. So
as Andy Mulder says, not in this for the exercise.
Yeah. We don't need practice. But if you're looking at an expense that's part of your company and you go, well, that puts me over budget, then you need to reevaluate how you're doing it.
Right.
I remember Derek, telling him, yeah, but every time I plug in a pool shell, like into where my numbers are at, like, there's no way I can sell them for that. He's like, then your numbers are wrong. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, do you know you're making money? I'm like, well, yeah, I cost them out, roughly. And he's like, then your numbers are wrong.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean my numbers are wrong? Like, I know. He's like, in the software, you're fudging stuff to get to where you need to get. There's something wrong. You're overcharging on man hours, or you're overcharging on pipe, or you're overcharging on water. There's something in there. And when I got back from Earth, Turf, and Wood after I talked to him, I skimmed everything down to the bare bones, and I was like, holy shit, he's right.
Yeah. Like or you think you can't sell, or you're not getting the numbers that you should be getting because you can't sell.
Right.
And that's a problem too. And so you gotta, but obviously yours was because you were fudging it.
I was just fudging it.
Right.
I wasn't really tracking it. I was going generic model, right?
Yeah.
Like, how many hours does it take me to install the biggest pool out there?
Yeah.
Well, that's the same man hours I was keeping for the smallest one.
Oh,
and so it was
instead of adjusting it.
Yeah, I was just building one template.
Yeah. And then I remember when you sent me your template.
Yeah.
It was a bit generic, and we have like gone through it and just now what we do is we take the job costing when it comes back, and then anything that was used on a pool that was not on the template gets added automatically to the template, and now it's like this super detailed.
Yeah.
Like every little thing down to how many weeks the porta potty is going to be there.
Yeah.
And the permit for the zoning and the permit for the building and
everything.
Like every little detail's on there.
Yeah. And you start realizing like, okay, I was spitting out a high price, but then when I trimmed it down, I was too low. But then when I reviewed it, I forgot to add the skimmer, or I forgot to add the porta-john, or I forgot to add this. Well, now I'm back up. Oh crap. It's starting to line up. Like everything starts lining up. But it's one of those things where I think I told Weston this. You have to commit to it. Like, you have to commit to a software and commit to the process.
Yep.
Or it won't work.
Right.
It won't work.
Yeah, you really do. You have to commit to
being honest with yourself.
And figuring out exactly what goes on to each job and exactly what went on for each job. So like our guys, when they clock in, they get paid off of whatever they clock into and synced up.
Yeah.
So they're very good about making sure that
I got you.
They're clocked in
to each specific task.
to specific jobs and usually the work area. We try to get the work areas figured out. Sometimes they skip around. They might be working on the pool and the patio. I'm not super concerned about that usually.
Right.
But they are getting paid off their synced up timesheet.
Yeah.
So they're pretty good about about clocking into it. So we got that, and then we've done the job costing now to where everybody knows the process of what happens with a receipt, and what happens with an invoice, and then what materials get pulled from the yard that have to be released by the guys in the field.
Yeah,
we're getting that dialed in. So now
that's pretty cool.
Now we're seeing like really good numbers coming back of like what that pool what that project, the whole deal, what it actually cost us.
Right. Well, and that's what,
time.
One of, actually a good guy I know out in Chicago, he told me that like last year, his average margin of error on their contracts without change orders, I mean, just like what contract went out, what those numbers came back at, everything was 1%,
That's incredible.
He told me like 2 years ago. And at the time I was like, there's no way, there's no way I could do that. And every year it's like, you start slimming that margin down, you start slimming it down, until you get to that point where you have to have guys on board with it. You have to have everybody on board with it, including your office personnel. Everyone has to be on that same page. And now I'm seeing it's doable. Like it is doable. Now does it get more difficult as you get into those $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 backyards?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
we've got, I think on the project we're on now, there might be like 90 invoices or something like that sitting in the folder.
Wow.
And so that those are getting processed daily as they come in. Otherwise, if you sit there until the end of the job or you let it build up for a week, it's going to be a mountain of paperwork.
Well, and that's where, to be honest with you, Cole, he enjoys that. You know what I mean? Like when we were taking this on, I'm a field guy. I'm a throw me in the dump truck, throw me on the low boy. Let's go make a mess. He loves that side of the business, which I'm fortunate for, because what I've learned over the last couple of years as we've grown and grown and grown, and you get into those, those bigger thresholds of sales, is you can't do it yourself. Same thing with you and Nick.
Yeah.
Nick is taking on more and more and more.
Right.
Probably what seems like every few months. There's something else he's ready to take on. It's the same thing with Cole. And I sat down with Cole and had a talk with him about where do you want to be in the future. And I think that's huge. And the job costing, the receipts, that stuff, he loves managing that.
Right.
That's a blessing.
Yeah, that's a huge thing off of your plate for sure.
And that's what I try to. But I think that's what I try to do with all my guys. It's like, what do you enjoy? Brent. Listen, dude. Brent wants nothing to do with synced up. Wants nothing to do with any of it, and I'm fine with that. Okay, clock in and clock out of your jobs. Keep track of that.
Yeah.
Cole. Put your receipts in a folder, but fill them out. And he'll submit them, and it's all taken care of. But I think it's a team effort.
Oh, yeah. And I'm a person that's really good at setting up the system, figuring out how this thing's going to flow in the process and making it efficient. But I'm not the guy that's going to be consistent on that every day because I got 10,000 other things to do.
Yeah.
So I've learned that I have to set people in charge of certain aspects.
Yeah.
And that's their job.
Yep.
And I let them do their job and stay out of their way. But if I try to just hold all that and try to be the one that has to keep up with that stuff, it won't happen.
No. And I mean,
and that's okay. It's not like a personality flaw of mine. It's not something I need to work on.
No.
I got 1,000 other things to do. And if I'm not out there selling and managing the rest of the business and I'm sitting there with my head in spreadsheets doing paperwork, then that doesn't make sense.
And it's something you don't enjoy.
Right.
I mean,
right. But yeah, there's things that you do that you don't enjoy, and that just takes discipline.
Yeah.
That's not what that is.
Right.
It's not like I need to be more disciplined about doing my books every night or whatever. That's not, you need to pass the ball.
Yeah. And you need to, and it's nerve wracking when you're handing that stuff off at first.
Yeah.
And then you start realizing, holy crap, look at the time I have. Look at how now I can leave the job site. And look at how now I can schedule meetings and go advance the company as a whole.
Right.
Instead of sitting back with a feather in my cap going, I can do it all.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we all go through. And I think, egos get in your way as a business owner. I've always been fortunate that I could care less. It's just, for me, it's my company, but we treat it as it's all of ours. And I think you do the same with your guys, this is all of ours.
Yeah.
We all do better when the company does better. And so when you hand off, you notice guys, they're more responsible.
Right.
All around, they
take ownership.
Yep.
You kind of let them do their job. They're going to take ownership of their job.
Yep.
And they, and things will get, frankly, done better than if I tried to do it myself.
Like bringing on an admin. Like, had you ever had an admin? You had.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I had never had one until January. So for me, this is like, what?
Yeah. So you were trying to do everything.
But it wasn't getting done.
Right.
Like that's the whole reality.
Sure.
Is, Kelly, God bless her. I mean, because
cleaning up a mess.
Oh yeah, her and Johnny, like it's one of those where no, but it was kind of good, right? Like when you hire a guy who loves to work outside, never been in the industry, works hard, wants to be here, wants to make money, but he knows nothing about what we do. Mm-hmm. It's awesome because you don't have any bad habits to break. So like with Kelly, it was like, I don't know, how do you like to do it?
Right.
Like, you tell me. After our onboarding process, I literally called her and I said, hey, Kelly, on the Trello board, I want you to make a Steve's Daily checklist. And she was like, well, I'll call Johnny and, make sure that's all right. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, you tell me what I need to do every day to make your job work.
Right.
And I think that's something a lot of business owners would struggle with, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, no, she's really good at her job. Mm-hmm. I'm really bad at that job. I'll let her tell me what to do.
Right.
No problem.
Yeah.
I mean,
nothing wrong with that.
No. And so, and you, so you've had an admin for a little bit of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Prior.
Since I started, I had some help.
Yeah.
And then it was always like a part-time help.
Yeah.
But
and it was never Carly. It was never your wife.
No. She's never been involved.
She's too much of a stud in her own industry.
Yeah, she's a rock star real estate agent.
Yeah.
And honestly, like having her the whole time that I've started my business being financially secure and stable, I really kind of had an advantage because I didn't have to bring a whole lot of money home, so I could kind of go swing for the fences.
Yeah.
It didn't really matter because she was always doing well.
Right.
But yeah, and she would help if she knew what to do or whatever.
Yeah.
But like she's way more valuable doing what she does.
Right.
She does great.
Right.
Real estate. But anyways, I had somebody, and it was always like more part time. But like with having the professional admin people that we have now, same company that you have, and they basically things happen every single day. And they have to happen, and there is no question of whether they happen. And it's just like they have to follow the process and do what we need them to do every day. And I don't ever have to question it. And it's amazing how nice that is to have somebody that you can rely on to do the things that need to be done.
Yeah,
no matter what.
Even just booking phone calls. Like I didn't realize because I'd never had one the value of they call. Kelly answers. Kelly says, this is what we do. This is where we're at. What are you looking for? Send us pictures of your backyard. Give us this information. Boom, 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 boom. When are you available for a call? Okay, Steve's available Thursday at 2:00. I get an alert on my phone. I have a phone call to make at 2:00 on a Thursday. Done.
Yeah.
Like
you just saved yourself 20 minutes when you were digging a pool and had 3 guys working with you that didn't need to be slowed down or whatever you're doing.
How many people a year have I pissed off in the past?
Because you're not going to answer that
I don't answer, or I answer and I go, I'm digging a pool. I'll call you back. Yeah. And then next thing you know, the pool dig didn't go well. Wall caved in. You got water in the hole.
Yeah.
You got pool didn't show up on time. You forget. And then next thing you know, it's 2 weeks later and you're going, holy smokes. And you missed out on a job.
Right.
Like, and when you're doing jobs of our caliber, you're missing out on 6-figure jobs.
Yeah, you can't afford to miss the good ones that are coming in.
Yeah,
at a certain point.
And so, I think we could probably do a whole episode on the admin side of things. It's just like, it's just mind-boggling. Now, again, back to the beginning of the podcast, you got to make money before you have admin.
Yeah, right. You got to grind it out and get to that point.
Right.
But when it's time, it definitely is super helpful. The other game changer when you're out there working in the field is those Peltor headphones.
See, I haven't got any yet.
Oh my God, it's the best thing ever. I can sit there and talk to you.
Really?
And when I'm running a compactor, a skid steer, I'll sit there and have a 20-minute conversation with a client, and they think I'm sitting in my office.
That's amazing.
And I'm just out there just getting after it. And they had no idea.
You
can't hear anything. It's crazy.
Because I got to get me a set because when I'm in the big hoe, the Bluetooth is still noisy. You know, I mean, the Bluetooth on the machine, they're still like guys will call me that I know, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't. You know, you don't realize it sounds that bad."
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, you know, I'm running a piece of equipment, and so I'm gonna have to get me some of those.
They're awesome. And then Nick has them, and I bought them for all the other guys too. So when we're on a job site, I'll just call those guys, even though we're sitting 10 feet apart, because there's so much noise. And like, you know, we could be from here to Cole, and we're just sitting here having a conversation.
Yeah.
He's on a compactor. I'm in the excavator. We're planning the whole next steps of the job out. Just sitting here casually having a conversation. And then I hang out with him, and I call the guy on the skid steer and say, hey, go grab me a pallet of this block and go give me a scoop of that. And they can hear their phone and actually answer and talk to you.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
The
other thing about buying them for your guys is like, my guys won't answer their phone because they'll be out working. I need to it comes about 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I need to call this crew and say, hey, what are you guys, where are you at? What do we need for tomorrow? All that kind of stuff. And they won't answer. And I need to talk to them right away. So having those headphones, they got it, and they're listening to podcasts.
Well, I'm just thinking because we carry all of our pools in the backyard with the excavator.
Yeah.
And we'll get a guy on the backside of a pool that I can't see.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, you can set up a 3-way call.
Yeah.
And you guys just sit there and have a casual conversation instead of all this yelling and screaming.
Yeah. Well, and the worst part is I installed my own Encon, on the 140.
Yeah.
I never wired up the horn. So I crack the window. Hey,
it cuts down on all the horns. On the job site. No, it's like the most underrated thing.
Man, but there's so many different models. I'm gonna have to know what model, you got.
The Peltor WS alerts or what I got.
Yeah,
they're just like a Bluetooth. It's just like a Bluetooth headset or like Apple AirPods. Is how they work. Then you can push the button and be like, "Hey Siri, call this or text this person." And while you're sitting there working,
dude, that's
cool.
Cool.
It makes it so much.
Man, Zach, I might answer Turner's calls more.
Oh, I had a 20-minute conversation with him yesterday. I was just on the skid steer.
Yeah. Dude, he'll call me and I'll be like it'll be something where in our group we're having a serious conversation, and the next morning he'll call me and I'll be like, oh, he must be calling about what we were talking about, and he's just like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what's up? Like what are you doing? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm heading to a meeting. And I'm like, all right, like, can you call me after hours?
I'm busy.
I'm driving the semi right now.
Right.
And no, but I mean, God, I love that guy. But anyhow, what do you think? An hour? Yeah. Is that a good?
Has that been an hour?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're at an hour and 2 minutes.